Mike said, and you could just,
Okay.
if you would. All right. This is Anita Vanderwert reporting for 5M. I'm lucky enough to be here today at Food Dialogues at the University of Missouri in Columbia. Sitting next to me is Dr. Donald Spiers. Can you tell me a little bit of what you do here at the university?
Sure, exactly. I've been here for over 20 years, and I work in the area of animal stress. We try to look at how animals respond to, specifically to heat stress, and how they deal with that, and how we can make it better for them when living in a hot environment. Part of my time is to do research in that area. The other part is to teach. I teach physiology, I teach environmental physiology, and I also advise students like in the Animal Welfare Club.
Tell me a little bit about your role here in the university as far as educating students in regards to animal welfare.
Right. So I advise the Animal Welfare Club, and so I help them organize their events, help them to get out and communicate about animal welfare. I also provide lectures in our department on animal welfare. We have a sophomore seminar class that we spend about 2 weeks with them, challenging them about their thoughts on animal welfare, animal issues that are out there. What does one student believe versus what does another student believe? Like for factory farms, for poultry and that sort of thing. What do they think about this? We believe it's important that the students are challenged, that they think through this, even the ones that come from farms. Think through this. Pretend you're somebody that doesn't know anything about farming. How would you interpret this? How would you understand what's going on out there?
What are some of the trends you've been seeing over the past few years in regards to animal welfare and the concerns students are having?
I think students are becoming, as the general public is, becoming a little bit more aware and concerned about animal issues, animal welfare, and that sort of thing. Unfortunately, I think they get a lot of misinformation that's out there, and so the challenge is for them to be able to evaluate that misinformation against what we know or we understand to be the situation that's out there. But no, I think there's a growing interest. Whenever I lecture on animal welfare, I get the largest number of questions from the students of any subject that I ever lecture on, because they all have opinions, they all have thoughts on this. And in fact, sometimes I have to just cut the conversation off because everybody wants to ask a question about this or express their opinion.
What do you think would be some of the biggest challenges we have here in the U.S. in regards to animal welfare?
Yeah, you're going to make me...
Yeah, and we can just say, let's stop and think about this for a second.
I think some of the biggest challenges that we have regarding animal welfare is that there are laws that are passed, such as the gestation crates, that are not based on science at all, that are just based on feelings of the people that see the crates. That these laws are created and that will change the market or the industry without any science background to it. We talk about how animals are stressed in their environment without actually having any test to verify were they really that stressed or not. Okay, and so this is the issue, that things are happening out there. I tell the students, I challenge them, I say, you have to be aggressive. You have to be almost an activist out there and talk to the public, because you can't just sit back, as we talked about a little bit in this session here, you can't just sit back like in the old days and expect, well, I produce food, nobody's going to mess with me. Yes, they will mess with you. They will change things if you don't get out there and talk to them. One of the biggest problems with that, then, is that people have so little understanding of science today. The people that make our laws, that pass our laws, have little understanding of the science that's out there, and if they don't understand the science, then they can't understand the welfare issues that are out there. And so the result is that they base it on feelings, or what the public is pushing for. There are actually people in the animal welfare industry today, or science, that say that we shouldn't even be discussing whether this welfare issue is well thought out or whether it's even real. The public believes it, and so therefore we should do it, which is scary.
Agreed. It seems like there's a lot of confusion, though, when it comes to gestation crates versus farrowing crates. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Because they simply don't know what's going on. They simply don't know. They see crate. The word crate means you're confining them. You see all the time in the literature that the animals can't turn around. They can't interact with other pigs that are out there. And it's just that issue that I think that's all they know. And so they don't see, in fact, if you were to allow them to roam around with others, they're going to get into fights. They could get more diseases that way. The welfare, with the piglets around them, they could get crushed. And so there are a lot more issues on each side that people simply don't understand or look at.
Obviously, in the United States, our animal welfare standards are lagging behind of some of the other countries. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think that trend is coming over here, or do you think the global population rise?
I think it will. I think, as we start to, one of the things that, I've spent some time in New Zealand and Australia, and they export so much of their animal products to other countries. And I think as we start exporting more and more, we will have to abide by some of the regulations that these other countries have. If we want to export to countries like China, Japan, and places like that, we will have to abide by their animal regulation, animal welfare laws in order to be able to produce a product that we can export. You're right, we are slow. I have no idea why we're slow. In Canada, they have groups, your beef group, your dairy group, your poultry group, work together to educate the public on animal welfare and how to do a better job of taking care of animals. We don't have that in this country. We don't have it where these groups cooperate often. Here they did in this session today, but usually we don't have them working together to work on this issue of animal welfare. And that's a problem. Somebody once explained it to me, at least what they thought was the issue, is that these groups are so strong in themselves. The Beef Council, the poultry people, the Dairy Association and all that. They have their own strong groups, and they simply just want to maintain their own autonomy and not have to work with the others. I think eventually they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to cooperate and work together to get some of these things across to the public.
As we all know, the global challenge that we're going to have if the world reaches 9 billion people in 2050, and the intensified need for increasing amounts of protein, how do you think that will impact animal welfare?
Well, I hope it doesn't reduce it. I hope we can, again, in the sciences and the research that we do, we try to find better ways of, first of all, identifying the welfare of the animals when they're not doing as well, using modern technology. And I think as modern technology advances and grows and that sort of thing, we will be able to monitor our animals when we ship them, when we take care of them and that sort of thing, to determine when there are problems. We had that question again at the session today about measuring the brain waves of the animals to determine when they're happy or not. I think some of that stuff is going to come along, and it'll just give us more input on what is something that the animal benefits from and what it doesn't benefit from. Animal production, how much milk they're producing, how many eggs they're producing, how fast they're growing, are also things that we can look at to see how they're functioning. And I think as we have to produce more meat in these countries, we have to take the animal welfare that we have learned over the years and transport that to these other countries. Some of the countries don't have the regulations that we have. And so we have to abide by that. I know I read a recent article the other day, though, about the Chinese government, Chinese buying a lot of the swine farms in this country, and the concern that they might reduce some of the regulations. Well, they're going to have to abide by the regulations that we have in this country, and I think I don't think that really will happen. I think they're going to want to produce a good product, a healthy product, just as we want to do. And so I think we just have to take that message to these other countries as we start producing more food for the world.
I've heard some people say if people would be hungry, or if people would go to the grocery store for 1 week and not find every possible combination of food readily available, that maybe they would take a different approach to some of the sustainability questions that are out there.
One of the topics that comes up in our department every so often is that, in fact, we maybe have done too good a job of producing cheap food and lots of it. And the public gets used to that. That if we had something that would limit that amount of food, people would start to appreciate it more, or appreciate how we take care of our animals more. I think that's a problem. We're complacent in the United States. We just take it for granted that we're always going to have plenty of food, and it's going to be very inexpensive.
You think that's because we are in more of an upper income or a middle income country compared to these emerging markets?
I do. Again, in these other countries, they don't discuss the animal welfare that much. And so I think again, as I indicated in the conversation a little while ago, I think we will have to carry that with us then. If we're producing more food, we're going to have to carry that animal welfare with us as we go into these other countries. It's going to be interesting to see, though, what happens.
Thank you so much, Donald Spiers.
Sure.
It's Anita Vanderwert reporting for 5M. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you got something from